This is the Drive-By with Freeway Frank.
Natasha Gargiulo is at my house.
Finally!
Yes! Cheers!
Finally, it happened to us. Cheers. Nice to see you.
Well, you know, it's not the first time I've been at your house. It's the first time I've been on your show.
Yeah, my podcast.
Your podcast.
Yeah. Do you miss doing this?
With you? Absolutely.
Me too.
1,000,000%. Yes.
Me too. You know, I noticed when we went last week, we went out for lunch, and I realized 2 seconds into you being there, and you gave me a big hug, and I got nostalgia right away. And I realized there's only one person, obviously outside of my wife, but in media that I'm comfortable working with where it feels natural.
Yeah.
And that's you.
Yeah.
And it reminded me when we had lunch.
Yeah.
And here we are.
I got all teary-eyed too. We went to Gentile and, we went right next door to Parlor, and we had a great time. But it was really nice when I saw you. I felt like, you know, we walked in and I got all teary-eyed seeing you, and you look good like usual. And I just miss you. I miss talking to you. I miss having, you know, those moments with you every day, because for the last, 10 years, you were my best friend.
Wait a minute. Last 10 years, now we're not best friends anymore?
No, I don't know. We're going to have to reevaluate our relationship. I don't know. You know?
We didn't get a divorce.
No, not at all.
You were trying to have a sentimental moment, and I interrupted.
And it's okay.
Which, by the way, that's what I did for a decade. I interrupted.
It's okay. No, but I missed you. So it was really great seeing you and catching up, and look, here we are.
Tash, people have been asking, and I'm not just saying, 5 people, 10 people. I mean, probably thousands over the last 3.5 years. When are you going to have Natasha on? Out of all the people, all the guests, all the celebrities, all the people request, you're always on top, because we had something special on the radio show. Now, I know we don't miss together. I think I could speak for you when I say this, the industry. And we're going to talk about that, because there's a lot that we went through, and we're not going to try to, do the whole woe is us thing.
No, we're not victims.
But there's a lot that we're not victims.
We are not victims.
But there's a lot we want to talk about.
Right.
But, it was painful.
Sure, it was painful.
What we went through. And I know people are like, well, everybody goes through stuff like that in life. And yes, but because for us, it was exposed. It was public.
Right.
And people made up stuff in their minds. And because we were on the radio every day in a big city in Montreal, people know us. And it was that much more painful, if I could speak for myself, for me. So, and people are like, yeah, you move on, put it on a boat and let it float. It never goes away. It still takes a part of you away, and you're like, what happened?
No, and I agree. So we're going right into it, right?
Oh, no. Let's talk about wait. First of all, before going on here, before we even pressed record, Natasha nearly spilled her glass. Show the glass of wine. We are drinking. At the time of this, it's noon o'clock.
1 second. Can I just say, he said, do you want a glass of wine? I said, yeah. He gave me a fishbowl of wine. Fishbowl of wine.
And I'm drinking scotch.
Cheers. But some things never change. No, I enjoy it. It's biologique wine, which is good.
Whatever that means.
No, you were saying a couple of things, and I do miss the industry. I'm going to just clear that up. I do miss the industry because this is all I know, and I love it, right? And I love working in this industry. So, yes, I still want to work in this industry and be a part of it. But what I miss most is being a part of it with you. And we had something that was very unique and very special here in the city. We're both born and raised in Montreal, and we got to live our dream job, which is being morning show hosts on a radio station or that we both grew up listening to. And I got to do it with my best friend in the end. And that was great. And, people got to know us. They got to know our personal, moments in our lives. I mean, when we were doing this show, my goodness, I went from, having a child to getting divorced to losing a parent to losing our jobs and to losing multiple jobs because, we went through life experiences and daily struggles and we related to whatever everybody else was relating to while they were driving to work or taking their kids to school. So, yeah, of course, you were talking about it being like a divorce, that we didn't get divorced. No, we didn't get divorced, but it felt like a divorce.
Yeah.
And divorce feels like death. And so if you didn't mourn it and you weren't upset about it, then I don't think you'd be human.
Yeah. When you said the industry, you miss the industry. I do miss working in the business. I don't miss the politics.
I know.
So I miss radio.
Yeah.
I miss you a lot, working with you. Because we had something really special. You know, when you wake up with somebody for almost a decade at 4 o'clock every morning, we had the best of times, the laughs that we had. But then like a morning husband and wife,
Yeah.
we also had, moments where I'm sure some mornings you wanted to kill me.
Yes. I mean,
Well,
I mean, I think it also came across on the air sometimes that you and I weren't seeing eye to eye.
Yeah.
But just like a couple would or a friendship,
Exactly.
we don't always see eye to eye. I mean, you don't want to be with somebody who's exactly like you, and
No.
I don't want to be with someone who's exactly like me, because how boring would that be,
exactly.
right? So our differences make us even better friends because we get to know each other better.
I remember we had so many laughs. I would look forward to. So getting back to what I was saying about
Sorry, I interrupted you.
no, I'm the interrupter. The industry, like I miss radio so much, but I don't miss the politics, because the politics is what brought us here today, which is jobless in an industry that we love so much, but other reasons too. You could throw in ageism in that. You could throw in, who knows, maybe financially we were doing okay and they decided, for whatever reason, was their answer. I mean, I don't even know what would really happen, but was it good enough to you that,
I mean, I still don't know the answer.
Me
To
neither.
be honest with you,
Yeah.
Lots of people ask, what happened, and everybody has their ideas, or they heard through the rumor mill this or that, and I still.
We had
don't
sex
know.
in the studio apparently.
Apparently,
Yeah.
It was so memorable. I don't even remember. I mean, honestly, but I mean, the fact that they thought that you and I were that courageous that
Yeah.
we would do something like that.
I was like, that's pretty ballsy.
Wow,
And,
that's pretty ballsy, right?
Yeah. No, we didn't. And
No,
I
we
have
didn't.
we have the utmost respect for each other. And
1,000,000%.
although we were very close, like you said, very good friends, and we worked together every day, never did we ever even come close to crossing any kind of line. So
Never.
when you hear those rumors,
Right.
it's ridiculous. It's and you start to think to yourself, wow, now all the stuff I believed about Hollywood and, famous actors and celebrities, half of the stuff is probably not true.
No, obviously, I have so much respect for Stephanie.
Yeah.
And you're married, you're happily married, and I've always, been a fan of yours, and it was great to just have this relationship with you where we can get along, do a morning show, and get along outside the studio as well. So that was just great for me, because you always had my back. And you're talking about the industry and you're talking about politics. And if there's one thing that I am so grateful for during that whole experience was that, you were always the morning man, but you never treated me like you were the morning man and I was your sidekick, which I respect.
Thank you,
1,000,000%. And you know me, I'm all about, feminism and gender equality and gender parity and all that stuff. And I really have to say, like, for anyone who's listening, you were always a gentleman with me, but you always helped me, or you kind of like pulled me aside and told me what was, maybe going to happen or going on, so that you gave me a heads up so I could prepare myself. Because there was a lot of differences when it came to how I was treated and you were treated.
100%.
Yeah.
And you talked about that, you were quoted in our local paper here in Montreal, talking about that kind of stuff. It was, you always used to mention the boys club, and in many ways, the industry still is, and they have to move past that. I don't think they're ever going to move past that. I don't think they're ever going to move past anything, because I think their best days are behind them.
Yeah.
But it would shock me, some of the stuff that I would hear sometimes behind the scenes, and I felt like I was almost scared in a way, because I've always been, me, I'm not a yes person, but in a way I was always like, what do I say? Like, because, look at what happened to us in the end. I didn't want that to happen 8 years prior or 7 years prior. So I'd just be there quiet and in my head. And then things started to happen in front of both of us, like things, that happened to Natasha that she has discussed or been quoted as to happening in the paper. And so you talked about it, and it's just, I couldn't believe it that those things were being said in a office with people around.
I think you just have to build enough courage and confidence to know when it's not okay and to speak about it.
Yeah.
And I wish I probably had that courage and confidence earlier on so that I could say, well, what you're saying to me or what is happening right here is not right. But you kind of have anxiety and you fear, well, if I say something, then I'm going to be out of a job and I've got a child to raise, and then where am I going to go, et cetera, et cetera. And the industry does treat women and men differently, especially in our industry. But the good thing about it is I think that they're starting to dismantle that boys club, which is a good thing. And I honestly believe that more women are speaking out about it and more women are talking about it. And there's a lot of changes that have been made. So there is a positive to it. It's just that, it's been going on for so long. Has anything really changed? No, but I think the more women or more people talk about it, then there will make a change.
Some of our best days were early on. And
Absolutely.
in the middle of our tenure, working with Tom, our old producer.
I love Tommy.
We had such a blast working with we had so many program directors, so many bosses we went through. Andre, the late great, who passed away
Rest in peace.
About 8 years ago. Andre Lallier, who's a great programmer. And he realized at a certain point that we needed to be given the green light. Remember that? When he goes, I don't care how long you talk, which is...
He was the best.
He was the best. That's a dream for radio hosts, right? Because it's always keep it short, get in and get out. But with him, he goes, I don't care if you talk for 15 minutes, as long as it's compelling and it's good. That was some of my favorite years. And when I started the show, I was on with Lisa Player, who's a professional, and I took over from Kat Spencer. But I knew Lisa. She pretty much told me off the top that she was leaving. And you were filling in when Lisa was away in the first year. And I remember I was like, I don't know if I ever told you this. I was like, as I was doing with Lisa, and I loved working with Lisa, but every time you would come in and fill in with her, I'd go home after and I'd tell my wife, I'd tell my friends, this woman is it's just natural. It just feels like it feels natural. It feels comfortable. I'm the most comfortable. Anytime you're sitting across from me, I'm the most comfortable. No matter
I love
what.
That.
It's
Thank
almost
you.
like, was it Linus with the security blanket?
You mean Peanuts, Charlie Brown?
Yeah, was that Linus? The character? So you've been that, because we all have anxieties, nervousness, whatever the case. You always made me feel, all those years, not once did I feel agitated, nervous, anxious, because I always felt like you had my back. You were there. Oh. And so from that day, I remember when she left the position, to me it was a no-brainer, and everybody heard it. So after all those years of doing a morning show together and having worked with some good people in the past, and I feel like you could work with anybody because you're accommodating, but to me, there's that one person you click with.
Right.
And I always felt like when it came to an end, and it's been 3.5 years now, that it ended too soon. I felt like we were just in our prime, okay? And we were pitching, for lack of a better phrase, no hitters. We were pitching, we were playing so well. We were doing so well together, and I just felt like that was taken away.
Yeah.
And we had no say in it. They used to tell us all the time, wear your heart on your sleeve, show your emotions. Natasha, expose your life. Really? You want me to talk?
Why did I always have to expose
and
my
Natasha
life,
always took the brunt of it.
Like, why am I the one who has to expose my life? But I think it was because they saw me as the one who with the most flaws, and maybe the fact that I spoke about my flaws so openly.
You had no problem talking
I had no problem with it. I mean, I never portrayed that I was perfect or I had it all together, because I don't. I mean, even coming here now, my purse is like overflowing with stuff. Things have not changed. My car is a mess. I'm a disaster. I'm going from here to there, but that's always been my life. But you're right. They always told you to wear your heart on your sleeve. But I think the reason why it was so easy to wear our heart on our sleeve was because we were comfortable with each other. And whenever we put that mic on, I didn't feel like I was talking to all of Montreal. I felt like I was talking to you.
Right.
And there is that comfort, is that you kind of forget that you're talking to an audience. You just feel like you're confiding in your friend. And obviously Montreal became your friends too. But it's just relatable stories that we all have with all of everyone who was listening in. So that was a lot of fun for me. And I miss it. And like you had said, every time something happens in my life, or every time I see something, I'm always like, oh, that would make such a great story to say, and share on the radio with Frank, or, oh my goodness, I know how Frank would react to this, or if I'm having a bad mom moment, or if I'm having one of those, stupid adventures that always happen to me where I get, caught in some type of disaster, and I'm like, Frank would totally react to it this way. I miss sharing those moments with you and talking about it. So, yeah,
those moments are honestly, and I don't want to get too sentimental or mushy, but some of the best moments of probably the best moments of my radio career, because it was so natural, raw, and I just felt like you were being your true self. And I trust me, I have just as many flaws or more, but I just felt like every day Natasha would bring something else that it's just so funny. And we would write it down just in case. Right? We got to talk about this.
We would have a journal, right? And it'd be like, Monday we're going to talk about what happened to Natasha here, and Tuesday. And I think at some point people are always like,
why is it always Natasha?
Why is it always
Natasha? She has a more interesting life.
No, it's not that I have a more interesting life. It's that for some reason things just happen to me all the time, and it's not interesting. It's just like you look up and you're like, why? But
when did you when did you feel? I want to see if it's at the same time. And I get asked these questions all the time by people in my DMs. So I want to know.
DMs, they
slide in my DMs for not that kind of way, but sometimes, but I don't do it. But when did you realize that things were changing?
Oh.
Okay, like when was your first hint? And I'll see if it was at the same time where it hit you. Things were changing with our show, and it wasn't the future. It wasn't bright anymore. You got to wear shades,
Well, from my perspective, and I don't mean to make this about a gender thing.
No.
I really
I want to know the honest, because I want to.
Because it's not like, here's Natasha talking about women's rights again. And all that
Tash, it's who you are.
But it's who I am, because I would always see these red flags go up, right? Where I'm like, oh no. When they started to make probably changes to when they let Tommy go.
When they let Tom, our producer, go.
Our producer.
Who's a sweet man.
Sweet man.
We had a blast with him.
All the time. I talk about relationships off the air. We had such an amazing friendship, the three of us. Yeah. And when they made changes, and it was one of those things where they didn't even confide in us, or maybe they confided in you. But again, I was always the last one to know, or I was the one to find out just minutes before we went on the air that there was a change happening to the morning show, which they often did to me. I was often the last one to know, but you always knew before me.
But I think I would kind of... Didn't I tell you?
I know you did, you did. But
I was loyal to this. I would tell you. I was like, listen, something's happening here. But I did. It's not like I knew for that long. But
right. Okay. So, but as somebody whose name was also on that morning show, don't you think that the right thing to do would be to pull both of us aside and say,
100%.
This is what's going to happen on the morning show. These are the changes that we're going to make. They would always pull you aside. They would take you out for lunch. They would confide in you. They would discuss the things about our show with you, and then it would be like, okay, let Natasha know.
You know what was so weird is, and I swear, and I know you know this, and I tell my wife all the time, I would say, is Natasha not there? No, it's okay. And I tell my wife, I was like, well, how do I handle this, right? And it was a precarious situation because, we lost our gig in August of 2019. We could have lost it in August of 2013 had I not played some kind of game, even though I'm not a yes man and I have a backbone, and I would give you remember I would give my opinion all the time. It's not a way to live your life or to work in a building where you're scared to speak up, because you think by speaking up they might say, oh, okay, like he's not one of us and time's up, right? So I was always worried about that, but I tried to share as much as I could, but it was wrong. It was wrong that you were excluded from many conversations. There's no doubt about it.
That's all right. I got thick skin. I'm okay with it right now. When I look back on hindsight, and I look back at it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, a part of it I feel like I should have been the one to speak up about it, but I didn't. And I think that the red flags were they started coming along later. And I started noticing when they made changes to our show, when they added different people to the show.
We could mention that because I want to talk about that, because that's exactly when I knew. No, and look, I'm still friends with Lee. and we play poker together. He's a nice young man. And
Why aren't I invited to these poker
Well,
games?
you don't play poker, but many times I wanted to teach you how to play poker.
Right.
Maybe now is
Maybe. I have a lot of time on my hands.
Of course, he doesn't have time. You and I,
So maybe
time
we
is all we
can.
have. But, look, and this is no diss to Lee, because I've talked to Lee about this, even at the poker table with other friends of ours in the mix. When they added Lee to our morning show, I thought that was starting to be the beginning of the end. Not the beginning of the end because he was bad, not
No, he
talented,
was
didn't bring a
wonderful.
fresher approach, was
Yeah.
younger. I knew what they were trying to do. But when they added the Freeway, Natasha, and Lee to it,
Oh, yeah.
they changed our dynamic and they threw Lee in there. I just felt from that day forward that the morning show was changing,
Yes.
and it started to also sound different.
Yeah,
Because you're adding a person in the mix.
Sure. And, I thought about it in a different way as well, because I'm like, oh, they're adding another man to the morning show, which means that, A, I don't have a chance getting your seat if you ever decided to make a decision and leave the morning show. Not that I ever wanted
No,
your
but
seat.
you should have had my seat when I was away too.
Yes.
To fill in, but they would bring in. We'll talk about that
right.
too.
So I knew, okay, well, there goes my opportunity of even having an opportunity to have the chance to head or anchor the morning show. And then I also thought about, well, wait a minute, is this your replacement coming up? So there was a lot of things that were going on in my mind and as to what they were thinking and maybe not sharing or maybe planning ahead. So I think you always had to be one step ahead of them, and you had to prepare yourself because anything could have happened at any time.
Do you ever listen to the new morning show? It's been 3.5 years.
Yes.
Do you ever tune them in?
Yeah.
And
I mean, I tune into every morning show. I'll from talk to pop, to talk, what am I saying? From talk to rock and
Top 40
top
or-
40 and all that. Yeah, of course, because I want to know what's going on, and I want to know who are the talent that are out there. And, obviously,
to be honest, obviously, yeah.
it's frustrating to hear some shows, and then
Yeah.
and for other shows, I'm rooting for them because some of them are my friends, and I'm happy for them, and I'm glad that they're doing so well, and they're living their dream, and they're getting their moment in the spotlight, and it's great. I mean, we're a very small market. We're
Yeah.
a very small market
For a big
here.
city, we are,
for a
so.
big city, and in English, we're very limited here. So, you get that seat, then I wish the best for you. I really do.
I tuned in about maybe a month ago, and it was for about 10 minutes. And to me, tuning into the radio now, it's very strange. I rarely, honestly, 0.03% of the time I listen. That sounds like a stat for something else. I listen to the radio because it's like when you see that ex that you haven't gotten over.
Oh,
And I turn
that's
on
a
the
good
radio,
point.
and everything reminds me of us. Everything reminds me of my career. I was in radio for 30 years of my
Yes.
life. Everything I got in life was because of radio. I owe radio everything. But it's painful for me to listen. So that's why sometimes Tasha might say, I was listening, and she starts talking, and I'm like, I don't tune out. But I honestly, truthfully, couldn't care less because it hurts me to just
Right.
turn it on because I feel like it ended in a way that it was never, for me at least.
Right.
And I know I talk to people in the industry all the time, and they also say it. You never get over it. I remember the only other time I lost my gig in Calgary at the end. I still wonder about. You never get over it. Like whatever at ET Canada or any other gig you may
Right.
have had. There's no doubt some days. I'm not saying you obsess over it and you think about it every day, but it's like any job, any career you might be in. You might think, what happened? Who was the provocateur? I don't know. Who was the
but
person
you do
responsible?
think just anytime anybody gets let go in a relationship or at a job, you blame yourself because
Yeah.
you go back and think, well, what did I do to what did I do in order for me to get let go, and was there something that I could have done to prevent myself from
Yeah.
getting let go? And then you start to go through scenarios and say, maybe it was that time when I pissed off that person, and that's the reason why I'm being let go, or oh, I know that person didn't like me, or yeah, they were planning it then. So, but you know what, you got to move on.
Yeah.
Because I do look at our lives now, and you were saying, do you listen? And sometimes I do listen, and sometimes I'll be like, I miss it so much, but then I'm like, I know what's going on behind the scenes, as you do too, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I know. No, because, oh, I know what's going on. Like they're told to do this, or they've got to wrap it up because of this, and they don't have the freedom to keep on going because there are restrictions, and they've got to, no. So,
and I hold no ill will towards...
No, not at all.
Towards, people that are still in the industry, people that may have replaced us. I truly have moved on. But obviously, you hear things, you hear rumors, you hear things like that. So there's things that are never resolved and things that bother you about certain people, right, in the industry. And for me, without mentioning names, we remember that breakfast we went. We got a new boss, okay, and he took us out for breakfast. And there were two major things that happened during that breakfast that I remember Natasha and I looking at each other, kind of like we're looking at each other now, going,
I'm trying to remember where he's going.
We're spelling this spells doom, okay? And he looked down. We were at a breakfast place. He looked down at the menu, and he literally looked down. He goes, "Okay, this is the radio station today." And when I'm done with it, he flips it over. He flips the menu over. So to me, a flip means either I'm going to be, not a part of this flip in a few months, which is exactly what happened. I know I've been in this industry long enough. Or I'm going to be part of it, and there's going to be a drastic change. So that was
when he flipped it.
When he flipped
Frank and I were falling over. Ah!
Yeah, exactly. Like we fell over. And then the other thing that was said was, okay, so he flipped the menu, and then the other thing that struck me as strange was, and you have 90 seconds from now on, anytime you turn on the mic,
right,
to the time you turn off the mic. And in radio, I was talking about the program director that just said, talk as long as you want, as long as it's compelling. It was like 90 seconds, and from the time you turn on the mic to the time you turn off the mic, and that's it. And I remember saying, does that include the call letters, which means the name of the radio station and our names? Yes, right?
We'll be at 60 seconds by then. So what do we have left to talk about?
Tash, so the reason why I brought this up is because the last few months of the Freeway and Natasha era on Montreal radio, to me, were miserable.
Yeah.
You remember me coming in,
yes,
and I was hearing rumors and things were being said. So it's not like, it struck me. It was like a sideswipe. You're driving into an intersection and a car just hits you and you're bewildered for a second and in shock. You don't know what just happened. But I knew it was coming. And we knew it was coming because of things that, we know people and we know the industry and people talk. This city, especially in Montreal, blah, 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 blah.
I was hoping it wasn't coming. And I remember you were filled with anxiety for many, many months, and you were not yourself.
No.
And I know that you were miserable at times because you were letting this eat at you, because you were having, you were coming up with these theories, and I'm like, stop, you're freaking me out here.
I had a new theory every day. I had dates. Remember when I wanted to do a pool?
Yes.
I wanted the pool of the day we lose our gig.
Manifesting. I'm like, stop manifesting.
I was right. I think I hit the day, the exact day.
This is terrible. You should be one of those people on social media who's all about manifesting, because he really did manifest.
I manifested our departure. I'm sorry I took you with me there.
Thanks for taking me down.
While we were a team.
And I remember you just let it kind of completely absorb you. And then we would get off on our morning show, and then you would text me throughout the day, and you're like, Tash, I know something's up. I heard this. I heard that. And I was just like, no, you can't believe that this is happening. And I remember so vividly, we went in on our last day. I'm laughing about it now.
August 7th.
August 7th.
Maybe it was a Wednesday morning. I think it was.
Right. I even think you were putting bets on it. You're like, I was
putting bets. Yeah, I was like, and then remember when the management was lurking towards the end of our show outside the window, and I said, "Here come the vultures." Yeah. there's prey out on there's roadkill, and they're all flying above it.
I remember. So I remember we had, because there was a bit of a break where we went into like, I don't know, a million songs in a row. And And
Zero
I'm
commercials.
And I'm like, I'm going to go get myself a second coffee. And I went into the kitchen and I saw that management was in their office and there was a weird vibe in the hallway. And so I was like, hi, everybody. And nobody said hi to me or made eye contact with me. And so I walked back into studio.
You were white.
Yes.
I was
and they
like,
were pacing. And I'm like, oh, these people are all in early. And your eyes just said, Tash, we're going to get let go today. I'm like, no, we're not. Stop saying that. And then you saw management come up to our window as soon as you said goodbye. And you got your stuff, and I saw you were so nervous, and the doors opened. And all I was told was, Natasha, grab your purse.
There's that purse again.
In all of my years at the radio station, no one ever told me, Natasha, grab your purse.
Grab your purse.
It's such a safe place to be, right?
Yeah.
Natasha, grab your purse.
Why do I have to grab my purse?
First thing that came out of their mouth, I opened the door, Natasha, grab your purse. And I just like, boom, my heart sank.
Yeah.
And then they
took us away.
They took
separately.
us away separately. And I remember looking back, I was like, where am I going?
Yeah, are they going to kill it? You know what it felt like? It felt like Goodfellas. It didn't it? Or Casino, one of those mob movies.
It totally
They're going to
felt
kill
like
us. They're going to whack us.
I'm like, I honestly said the prayer. I never pray. Well, I never pray. That's a lie. I do pray. But I remember going up there. I'm like, what are they going to do to me? Am I going to be, what's going to happen to me? I have my purse. I'm holding on tightly to it. And I'm thinking in my head, what else do I have to grab? Am I allowed to come back in? And they took me through the stairs. We didn't even take the elevator.
I went up the elevator. That's because I was on the elevator. They probably didn't want us seeing each other.
They took me up the stairs. And I was like, by the time we got to the floor where they actually told me I was let go, I was out of breath because
you went up the stairs.
And they took me up 2 or 3 flights of stairs.
And maybe that's an insult to me because it's like Frank will make it up the stairs.
And I get into the room and there's this person sitting there and all they said was like, this person's here to help you. Do you have any questions? And it still didn't hit me. I'm like, questions about what? Like, what's going on here? And then I was told, well, obviously, if you're here, you know what's going on. And I was like, what?
When I was going up the elevator, you know what crossed my mind? I really hope, I knew we were getting let go, but I said, I really hope, I pray that if this happens, they whack us at the same time. They take us both out. No, meaning I didn't want me surviving it. And then they're saying, listen, we're going to get rid of Tasha, or hey, listen, we're going to get rid of Frank, and you would have stayed, or I would have stayed. I was like, at this point, the best thing they could do is get rid of us together. So that was, I did appreciate that because I don't know how you would have done, but speaking for myself, if I had to remain on that show with a new host, there is no way I would have accepted it. I would have been like, no, Natasha stays or I go.
You for that.
So that's why I think, if anything, whether they were thinking anything else, it came as a package. No, Freeway and Natasha are done.
So when I was going up the stairs, I thought I was the only one getting let go, and I thought that they just pulled you over because, you guys were gonna continue on with the morning meeting that always happened after our show, and I thought, okay, I'm the one getting let go. But now again, in hindsight, when I look back on it, I think you're right. I think because you and I constantly had each other's backs and we were constantly there for one another, maybe they realized that you and I would not have accepted that change, and maybe we wouldn't be comfortable. I'll be honest with you, every time you went on vacation or you weren't there, I was kind of like, oh, who am I going to do the morning show with? And you were always that person where you were my safety net too, because we would bounce things off of each other and you knew how I would react to it. And if I didn't react a certain way, you kind of knew how to come back with it and keep it flowing. Yeah. And the same with me, right? Like you would throw something at me and I would catch it. And
you were the best at that. You never let me, whether you use the quarterback analogy and you were the receiver getting the touchdown or the pitcher and the catcher, whatever the sport. I know I mentioned so many of these analogies over the years. Natasha would be like, okay, give me an analogy that I could understand. You understand, but you're not into sports. But you never, my point is, some of the best players in the world in sport would never be who they were if they didn't have their equal in whatever play they were executing. If they didn't have the person passing them the puck or scoring together, you know what I mean? My success same as yours, I'm sure, wouldn't be the same without. I'm telling you, I don't believe if the show had remained Freeway and Lisa, or if you had gone Natasha and somebody in Lee or somebody else, I don't think it would be the same. And I think now the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
And it's not to diss anybody, but since we left, it's not what it used to be. And that's demonstrated by the only thing that they have to measure, which is ratings, right?
Right.
And if our ratings for any reason were going down, so we're still at 20.
Who wasn't listening to us? Who?
Because the messages were crazy that we got. But let's say we weren't good enough. Well, I think after 3.5 years, I mean, you decide now. I'm not going to say anything, but you decide, right?
I also think that the industry is changing drastically.
It has.
The industry has changed drastically, and even like with COVID and after COVID, and like even in the industry that I am in now, with TV and online, everything is digital.
Yeah.
Everyone is listening to music a different way. Everyone is listening to, they're listening to more podcasts like yours.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait anymore for the 6 o'clock news or for those entertainment magazine shows anymore during prime time, because you get it instantly now,
That's right.
Through people who are there, who post it, and it doesn't even have to be great quality. And, information is instant, and we're all on our phones, and the industry has changed, and the way we used to make TV and radio is changing, or has changed, and it will continue to change. So I think, maybe it was kind of a blessing in disguise that we had the best of our time together, and now that the industry has changed, we're evolving into something else. I mean, look at you. You've got this amazing podcast, The Drive with Freeway Frank. It's amazing, and you're doing what you really love. And, I'm still hustling and doing all these other different jobs, but I'm loving what I'm doing because I'm being true to me.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to be and stay true to me. And so, I have a lot of different things on the go, but I love everything that I'm doing. I love every hat that I wear.
And that's what makes, I think, our chemistry, our relationship, our on-air presence together so special. And that's what I hear. I know you hear it from people all the time. And again, some people might say, yeah, I heard. No, it's like, this is 3.5 years after the fact. I'm still hearing it all
that's great.
time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. But
Thank you.
It's because something special. Look, we have nothing written here. We're just chatting.
No.
Not everyone, especially in the radio industry, could pull that off. I always said, if you let us speak in the morning, turn on our mics. Start at 5:30. I'll end at 9 o'clock.
Right.
We don't even have to play one song.
90 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, and people that are compelled to listen to that style of radio, which means two people being honest, raw, and talking, which is what this podcast is about. It's about realness. It's always been about, well, I'm not going to hold back. If there's something that I want to say, I'm going to say it. And so people were wondering for a while, what took Natasha 100 episodes to come here? I've invited, by the way, I invited her 3 other times before this, but I understand.
100?
This is 100, by the way.
Wow.
Where's the confetti in the front? Thank you very much.
Where's the champagne?
Thank you very much. Well, you got wine. Start with that.
very
And
good.
you're not drinking it, by the way.
Okay, well,
drink some more wine. I like.
all right.
Well, I'm not going to say I like drunk Natasha, but I like.
When was I ever drunk?
No, never. Okay. But I like when Natasha is drinking. I'm going to pull you. Yeah.
Should I move over here?
Yeah, pull a
Sorry.
little forward. Now you're drifting off the camera.
Sorry. Oh,
just
my goodness.
come closer to me.
Like
I know
this?
that.
Oh,
doesn't-
like
yeah.
this? Was I
Well, no,
supposed to be?
more there. Center. This is a cool thing. So you could never do this type of stuff on the
okay,
radio.
there
They
you
would
go.
say, you guys were talking about where the mic was, and you're telling Natasha to
aren't
move
you gonna,
over.
What, can you edit this out?
I'm not editing this out.
Oh,
this
come
is
on,
the
Frank.
thing about.
This is just, no.
So what was I saying before? Like I lost my train of thought.
I was on your 100th show.
You're on my 100. So the question I get asked the most, besides when's Natasha going to be on the show, is, have you guys ever thought about doing another radio show? And Natasha asks me this all the time. The thing about Natasha that I love is she's very, and not that I'm not positive, but she's not only positive, but she does, like we thought about, she manifests things that you should be manifesting, not your demise. It's your career, but she manifests things. And she's always said, Frank, how are we not doing a morning show? How are we not doing? It is crazy when you think about it, because it's two people who have worked in the industry for so long, are Montreal born and bred, and we're on the sidelines. But the truth of the matter is, the way radio is going and TV is going and the industry is going is we don't need anybody to do anything but each other. With your skills from television and radio, with my skills, limited television, but mostly radio, and our abilities together and our chemistry and how comfortable we are together, we could do whatever we want.
Yes,
right?
we can.
So, funny enough, when we got together for lunch last week and we were talking, we started to realize as, the minutes passed, and then it was an hour, and then it was 2 hours, we started to realize how nothing's changed. You know, when they say when the true meaning of a friendship is you could pick up where you left off.
Absolutely.
And with us, it really truly is that. We just dove right back into it.
Yes.
And with my, idiosyncrasies, we each have our own things that make us who we are, and especially unique character traits. But we just continued.
Yeah.
Where we left off. And then we started to talk, and Natasha's been saying things to me about having a radio show again one day. We did talk about what happened if somebody gave us an opportunity somewhere else. Would we move to another big city to do a morning show? And I started thinking about things, and my personal podcast here. It's a lot of work to put together, even two solo. And when you add a guest to it, it's a whole other thing. It takes a lot to just produce one show. We were talking, shooting the shit. I came up with some ideas. Tash came up, talked about certain things. So I brought up this idea that I had, and Natasha right away lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yes.
And I knew, okay, we're on the same page here. And why haven't we done anything? I think you were we did go through the last 3 years of everything we went through in the world. So I don't think we were in sixth gear with anything. No one was in the world. But now that things are opening up again, calming down, life is back to some kind of normalcy. We started to talk about, I mean, it would be a shame. Is this the end? I know it's 3.5 years, but are we done? Are we over
No.
Freeway and Natasha?
No, I'm not done with Freeway Natasha. The biggest lesson that I've learned about being let go is I didn't want whoever let me go to dictate how the rest of my life and my career was going to go. So if I can have control of the narrative and do the things that I really love with the people who I trust and love, then why not? And I've been wanting to do something with you for the longest time, but like you said, COVID happened and the world changed, and we all both had our things going on, and it all comes back to meeting people on the streets and getting people sending you DMs and asking you, I really miss you, or even like going to the dentist with your daughter, and the person at the front desk is saying, I really miss you guys, when are you going to be back? And then your daughter is getting her exams done because she's getting braces, and then her orthodontist is saying, we really miss you guys.
She's already getting braces, her daughter,
right?
Leticia.
And if you
Amazing.
guys were true fans of the show, you would know that when I started Freeway and Natasha, I was pregnant.
That's why, exactly.
Right? And now
Wow.
my daughter is getting braces, and she's going to high school, and it was a huge part of my life that I shared with Montreal, and I would love, and even my daughter, like, she's known only because of what we talked about and shared on the air. And so that's a family to me, and I miss my family, and I miss doing this with you. And so I feel like it's a real tragedy that we're not doing something together. Obviously talking about things that are relatable to our audience, obviously doing stuff that we used to do
Having
every
fun.
morning and having fun.
Yeah.
That's what I truly miss with you.
So you're going to say it, or I'm going to say it?
You're going to say it.
They're going to say it.
No, you're going to say
Yeah,
it.
we're okay. This is my podcast. It's the drive-by.
Yes. And congratulations on
thank
the
you so much.
Drive-By 100 show.
Thank you again. Thank you, Natasha. And the drive-by is not going anywhere. I'm going to continue doing the drive-by.
It's not driving anywhere?
It's not. No, it's staying still. Well, I'll have other announcements in the future, but
Yes.
right now, I think we need to go ahead, Tash. I want you to say it.
So, you know what? After we had spoken and we had seen each other, I miss Freeway Natasha, and I would love to do a show with you again. Freeway Natasha, the nostalgia, what people loved, what people know of us, and, to continue sharing our stories and relating to people who tune in.
We're doing a podcast! Yay! Yeah, everybody, their aunt, uncle, cat, and dog is doing a podcast. So we said to ourselves, why not? Most morning shows.
I mean, why not? You're right.
Why not?
Why aren't we? But why did
What took us so long? Well,
I don't know.
Well, because we did go through the last few years of, how would we have really done one? We would have had to do it remotely.
Yes.
So there's a lot of morning shows that we know that did get back together after being let go.
Right.
And we see them out there. What I don't like is when people do those, I know you do a lot of them, and I'm not criticizing you, but the whole world does it, the remote podcasts. So Natasha's in her basement, I'm in my basement, cut screen, and it's like, I hate that.
No, I think the whole chemistry is you and
it's
I
here.
face to face.
It's here. So we're in studio here at my house, in my basement, and to me, there's nothing better. There's no better vibe than when two people are sitting across from each other, right? The podcasts that I follow are all podcasts that are in the same room with the same guests. Joe Rogan being one of the biggest ones, of course. So for me, it's important that, and we're ironing out the details, how many times a week it's going to be, when we're going to record. That's all stuff that you guys don't care about. You just want the product and you want it out there. But we're going to be, that's for sure, we're going to be on Spotify, we're going to be on Apple, Google, Amazon, everywhere you get the drive-by, you're going to get the Freeway and Natasha podcast.
Yes.
That's what we're calling it. That's what it is. And, today, here, we're just having a conversation. We haven't seen each other in a long time. But we're moving forward with everything. We're going to have fun.
And no negative manifesting at all.
No negative manifesting whatsoever. And we have no bosses besides ourselves.
That's right.
And I'm looking forward to it because it's really going to be turn on the mics. We have no music, so don't expect us to play any music. It's really what we're about, Freeway and Natasha. And Natasha says to me during lunch, all right, I'll do a podcast with you because I've been dying to do something with you, but I'm going to mention it. No C word. I'm not going to say the word because if I say it, that stupid thing is going to appear on a...
There's a couple of conditions.
Yeah, we're not talking about the C word with the number. Okay, and we're not talking about that other thing that people got and didn't get in the last couple of years. And no, I mean, we could talk about politics, but not deep, not the way I talk about it on the drive-by, or I'm not going to go on political rants, but it's going to sound a lot like our morning show, minus the music and commercials. But you might hear, of course, sponsorships. We want people to support us. But it's going to be raw and real, and it's just us turning on the mic, and there's no flash, there's no... we're just going to talk and have fun.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm looking forward to. And it's so funny, when I came, I was like, well, all right, sign right here. We're not going to be talking about this, and that. No, I didn't do that. But, I mean, to me, I've always been, even when we did our show, you know, we talked about politics, or we would talk about certain things, and you mentioned the Peanuts characters before. I would be like, that teacher where you'd hear in the back. Some things just... I know when to stay in my lane, and I know what I'm good at. I know what my strengths are, and there are other things that I just want to stay away with, just because I feel that that's not you and me.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
If you want to hear all that stuff,
listen to my podcast.
Listen to the drive-by, everybody. Listen to the drive-by,
and we'll definitely cross-promote it on this podcast. Mention and remind you to listen to Freeway Natasha on that podcast to mention what Natasha's up to, what I'm up to, and then when we come together, which, look, it's going to be no doubt my main focus, even though I'll be doing the drive-by, it's going to be my main focus to work as hard as possible on our Freeway Natasha podcast and our continued brand to make it successful. Because I think there's whether we're talking about, how I feel about Hollywood.
You know how I feel about Hollywood.
And you know how she feels about it. But I'm going to be true to myself and say, but I want to talk about it. And I'm going to be honest and say things. And she's going to be honest and say her things from her perspective. And that's what made our morning show so popular. And so I think, I don't want to, toot my own horn, but it was good because we were...
Yeah, and I think the fact that we talked also about things that were going on in our lives that were very relatable. A lot of that. What everybody was going through as well. I'm still very concerned about, my daughter now is entering into her teens, and obviously she's going to be listening to the...
What a time we're living in.
Listening to it, and her friends listen to it as well. And, it's not going to be really squeaky clean, but I do want to share a lot of what's going on in our lives and continue to share that with Montreal.
Yes.
I feel like, we owe it to Montreal to and our listeners to kind of just know what's going on in our lives and have them come in and be a part of it again.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a treat, because I think if you're a Montrealer who either grew up, I hate saying this line, grew up listening to us because it dates us, or
dates us.
You listened, you supported our morning show. That's great, but like with the drive-by or any podcast, you're always trying to get more of an international, opening up to other provinces. So I want the podcast to be also a different level of Freeway Natasha, that you could be in Toronto still listening to it and it'll make sense.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So yes, there's going to be some Montreal references, but Tasha's in Toronto every second day, and we're going to talk about Toronto. We're going to talk about Los Angeles. We're going to talk about New York. What's happening here? What's happening in our lives? What's happening in the world? And we're going to have real conversations about all that. Whatever, you're never going to be worried about,
Right.
Maybe you self-edit if you want to edit certain things, when it comes to yourself. But I'm never going to worry about what I say, because I just want to be me and you want to be you. And I think that's what's going to make this podcast successful.
Yeah. And you just touched on something that made me remember it when you're like, maybe that dates us. And I remember I used to really be concerned about saying things that would date me, just because of the fact that, with ageism and, if you reach a certain, time in your life, then you're not going to be relatable anymore to the audience because you're aging out.
I don't care about that
whole
stuff.
thing about aging out and not being relatable because you're dating yourself. I mean, we are who we are, right?
Yes.
And we're going to stay true to ourselves, and we're going to talk about whatever is going on in our lives.
Like I remember sometimes on the radio there'd be a song you and I would, because we're close. You're a little younger than me, but
thanks for that.
and I'd play something and Natasha would be like that,
Yes.
And Lee would usually be looking at us like what they do, but and then we'd be told like, guys, it dates you and this and that. I never want us to feel like that. I want you to be able to talk about anything, and you will. I will never, and I swear you, this is my oath to you, never walk out of our studio doors and ever say, you shouldn't have said that, you could have said that. I don't care.
You.
Say whatever the hell you want to say. I'll say whatever the hell I want to say. Get mad at me on the podcast. But there's one thing that I promise and pledge, as the audience is my witness, that I will never do, and that is make you look bad, because I don't want to, you told me the things that, and not that I'm going to bring up things that'll make you look bad, but I don't want to make you ever feel uncomfortable. And so I'm not going to talk about things that it's just not, it doesn't go in our box, it doesn't fit in our brand.
Yeah.
So I don't want you or even potential sponsors to ever worry about that. It's Freeway Natasha, the podcast.
Yeah, and exactly.
When are we starting this?
Let's start. I mean, we can keep on going. You see, we just want to keep. Are we wrapping?
No, we're not wrapping. No, there's a couple other things I want to ask you. Keep going.
Yeah, no, we can talk about whatever. But you've never made me look bad, and you've always had my back. So again, I just want to reiterate that you always had my back. So you never made me look bad or anything. But I think also the difference is that I do still want to work in this industry. I do. I remember that. People would say sometimes, "Oh, Natasha, she's too Hollywood. She's too Hollywood, right?" And I would always be offended by it because I'm like, "Well, what does that really mean? I'm too Hollywood. Does that mean because I like to cover entertainment? Well, that's all I know. That's how I started off in this industry, is covering entertainment, local entertainment, and then like Hollywood entertainment. And I'm like, so what's wrong with that if I'm too Hollywood and I like that? Where I even lost my train of thought. Oh, wow.
What's wrong with the fact that you're too Hollywood, even if you want to...
I'm not too Hollywood, but it was always like, oh, you're too Hollywood. And then when you weren't enough Hollywood and you were being mom mode, it was like, oh,
too mom.
Mom. Now we need somebody who's... And I'm like, you were just never enough. Yeah. Like, you just felt like you were never enough.
The thing about a podcast, and I know because I know you do the film one, but we're not going to have people... I mean, you got to be a loser, I'm telling you right now, to hate us and be listening or watching our podcast. It's not the radio. You're not tuning in. It's like, I got to listen and tolerate these two people to get to my next song.
Right.
To get to my... Right. No. Anyone who's listening or watching the podcast is a fan, is somebody who really likes us. So
thank you.
Who gives a shit? I don't worry about anything you're going to talk about, whether you're staying on brand, Hollywood, not Hollywood enough, talking about being a mom too much. Is she going to talk about, her boyfriend, and you have a new boyfriend, by the way. I know him, by the way, and I'm happy that it's that gentleman because he's so cool.
Oh my goodness!
I'm not even going to mention his name because you don't need. He doesn't need stalkers.
Okay,
it's not necessarily. It's not necessary. But
right.
You have a boyfriend, and people ask me all the time: is she single? Is she single? She's free.
So
Frank, hook me up. Boo, boo, boo. Hook me up, bro. But you have a boyfriend,
but right away, if there's someone who's like woo 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 woo, then no, we're not.
No,
hooking.
then she's not into you. But you know what? She's glowing, and she's not only glowing.
I put bronzer
because
on,
of the
that's
wine.
I put bronzer on.
She hasn't sipped. Show the wine. It's still there.
Wine.
I put the half a liter in there.
You did put a lot of wine in there.
But you're glowing because when things are good in life, your daughter's growing up. She's getting her braces. She's a beautiful young lady.
Thank you.
You have your boyfriend. Your family life is good.
My goodness. Yeah.
Your family life is good. When things are good in a relationship, okay, like. I love my wife. She's been away. I miss her. She's been away now for a couple of weeks.
A couple of weeks?
On a mother and daughter trip.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Abandoned me for a couple of weeks. But, when things are good, when you could truly say you love somebody, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks. It doesn't matter. It's your life. You do what you want. And I feel like you are in a good place. And I feel like you're happy. Frank, I have some news. I'm not with him anymore.
Again with the manifesting.
I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. I was like, I'm setting up what? I just feel like you're in a good place, and I feel like you're happy, and I'm happy for you, and I'm happy that I've met him. He's a nice guy, and I'm happy. Anything else you want to add to it?
I think at one point in your life, you just have no choice. You've got a decision that you make every day, and I think there's been so many struggles and behind the scenes things that have happened to both you and I throughout our whole relationship being on air together. And you have a choice in life that when something happens to you, you got to figure out, okay, well, how am I going to get past this? The choice is, do I get past it or do I stick in this rut and be miserable and sad for a while? It's okay to do that. But then you have to I have a daughter, and I know I always go back to how I have a daughter, but really she's my priority with everything that I do, right? And so for me, I don't have that choice to not be okay and to not keep going because I need to be an example for her. And so my happiness is also her happiness. And so I need to figure out shit right away so that I can get back on track. So I think you asked me if I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy. But it's a choice that I make every day to be happy because sometimes life is really hard and sometimes things don't go my way and I have really bad days. But I gotta snap out of that right away because there's a whole life ahead of me and I still have to do something with it because I got a daughter to raise.
Yeah. And your daughter's met your boyfriend, which is it's got to be.
Why is this about my boyfriend now?
But I'm saying at some point we're gonna. By the way, we're not doing the Freeway Natasha podcast.
How long is this podcast?
It doesn't matter. There's no limit. Why you putting a time on it? You have to be somewhere. But look, for me, the Freeway Natasha podcast, it would be really cool to at some point, right? It could be even my wife.
Stephanie
it could be my wife and your boyfriend.
Sure,
that would be one day.
Not a problem.
But my point is,
this is water, by the way. Now I'm wishing it was vodka. No, I'm joking.
I could get you the vodka. I have a full bar.
No.
But that's the thing is that I love is that would never happen in the radio industry or TV. Like today, my boyfriend is here. Let's just put him on because can you imagine? It'd be great to just in terms of dynamic, in terms of having a conversation. You asking me questions about whatever we're discussing, and Steph is there. She's going to tell you, oh yeah, he does this all. It's interesting, right? It's fun. It's different. And I'm not saying we're going to put him on out, but my point is, I feel like this podcast is going to be so accessible and so real that we could do whatever the hell we want, anytime we want. And I'm excited that I could ask you anything. I feel that. And you could ask me anything, right?
Well, which is, I could never. Wait a minute. No, you can't ask me everything.
What can I add? Well, I just so I know, I'm gonna take notes. What can I add?
Already,
well, I'm not gonna ask you. I don't care about your sex life. I don't care. No, honestly.
My sex life?
Well, no, I don't care about it because it's whatever. We all have them.
I don't think we're gonna sell the podcast based on my sex life.
No, I don't. Well, it's not that interesting.
No, we're not gonna talk about it.
No, we're not gonna talk. But I know, I'm a gentleman. There's certain things that I'm obviously not gonna discuss, but sometimes things are gonna come up and it's going to be in conversation and we're going to talk and I love that because I remember back in the day, I don't think I ever said or hinted to you dating somebody, having a boyfriend. Like, I remember talking about your husband, your divorce, but then, hey, that's it. It was over, right? So
I don't
just
know
feel
why
like
there's such a curiosity as to what...
There is, Natasha.
Okay.
Of course, because if you're putting yourself out there, which we are, we should be able to talk about anything. But anything doesn't mean I'm a ficanaz, which in Italian means I'm nosy and I'm going to ask you questions about your personal life, your finances, my personal life. No, I mean, like, it should be so natural that if ever something came up, we could talk about anything.
Sure.
And I know you're okay with that.
Yes. I think I'll just answer is like, I don't want to answer that. My daughter's going to listen.
Yeah, your daughter, that's the thing, but your daughter was listening to our radio show back in the day when she was younger.
Yes.
And there were some times that, even for radio, there were risky conversations on there. Things did come up. But this, I would imagine, would be like next level.
They were risky conversations, and I remember I would go to school, and the teachers would be like, "Oh, I listened to the show this morning," and I thought, "Oh my goodness, what did I say on the morning show?"
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, "Oh, maybe I got to filter some stuff."
Yeah.
But no, there's no filters here.
No
Absolutely
filter.
not. But I mean, yeah, the show will be more than stories about me.
So here's, as I make this announcement on my podcast, and we make this announcement for our new podcast, the Freeway Natasha podcast, as you're watching this, as you're listening to this, do you want to hear the podcast? I'm curious. I mean, we have an idea of how many times a week we want to do it. Do you want to hear it every day? Do you want to hear it at least twice a week, 3 times a week? I'd love to hear from people in either Natasha's DM. What's it? At Natasha_Gargiulo?
Yeah.
You could DM her, DM
Sure.
me. An hour, 30 minutes a day, 45 minutes a day, because we just want to hear where you stand when it comes to that, because
Sure.
we value your opinion.
Sure.
We always have. And we think it's very important to ask you and say, when would you want it available in the morning? I think it'd be cool to have it always available for the next day in the morning, because it becomes like almost like a morning show, even though it's not. But it's that's when we were on. So if it's available for your commute,
Yep.
and you put it on Spotify or Apple, and you're listening to Freeway Natasha,
Be a part of your morning commute.
it's cool, right?
Yeah, I think that's great.
We're working on those little details and when we're going to launch it. But I would imagine, look, I'm not going to say April and then it's not going to happen in April and it's going to happen in May. But let's just say in the next little while.
In the next little while.
But we are doing it, right?
We're definitely doing
100%.
it. There is no backing out of this. We're definitely doing a Freeway Natasha show, podcast.
Okay.
I got to get the terminology
And if anybody
right.
has another name I know it's going to be Freeway Natasha, but then some people put wording before the Freeway Natasha podcast, Freeway Natasha, period. Whatever. Any ideas that you might have, we listen.
Let's just stay true to us.
Let's stay true to us.
stay true
We've
to
made the
us.
decision. She's made the decision right now. It's the Freeway and Natasha podcast coming to your favorite podcast
Do I
platform
get to ask
and
you
YouTube.
the hard questions? and
Ask
put
me
you
some
in the hot
questions. Yeah,
seat?
go ahead.
All right.
Ask. Oh, you mean on the podcast or
Yes.
now? You could ask me anything now if you want to. Is there anything that we could still talk about?
No, I think we've
is
said
there
a lot.
anything? We could talk about everything. We could be here for the next few hours. But anything you wanted to know? You want to throw me under the bus a few
Are
times?
you
or-
happy? You seem happy.
Why are you asking?
I mean, you seem very happy.
Yes.
too.
Look,
Yeah, you seem very happy.
I'm happy, but I want I was telling this to Natasha before we came down here to record. 2023, and I think I talked about it on the drive-by, is a big year for me because I want to know where life is taking me this year personally, in terms of personal growth, in terms of my career,
Yeah.
whatever. I know things are strong with my wife, my family, my dog.
well, she's been away for weeks, so we don't.
How great can this? What a gig! Do whatever I want. But I want to know what this year has in store. Even though we're 3 months into this year, I'm sure you do similar things, right? You have like an idea
Sure.
of this is your goal for the year, whatever the case is. I always thought some people say it's at the back of my mind. It was at the forefront, okay, of my mind of doing something with you. So I want to see where that goes.
Okay.
And I want to see where my podcast goes. And so we take it from there. But my short-term plans are to stay here for now and make the best of what is going on with my new ventures and my podcasting and other things that I do. And I'm sure everything that you do in your career too, you want to take it next level.
I don't want to feel like my best days are behind me. I wake up some mornings thinking they are. I'm not going to lie. I wake up some mornings thinking, will I be able to top what I did during this period of my career, or whatever the case is? So I'm banking on a lot here. I hope this podcast does well, because I don't want to leave yet. But, we do have plans. We've discussed it, Steph and I, one day leaving Montreal. She's a Western Canadian. She's lived half her life in Ontario, half in Alberta. Who knows where we'll end up? But right now, I have my mom. My mom is a big part of my life, my family, my sister, my nieces, and all I have, my good friends who stood by me, and we've stood by each other over the last little while. So, yeah, I have I'm happy, but let's go. Like, I want to get to the next phase. It's time.
I agree too. Like, listen, you constantly give me compliments, but I grew up respecting morning men on the radio. Like, that's all I knew when I was listening to radio. And I think that you are one of the best morning men ever in Canada. And I feel like it's time for you to get, back out there and have your show and live your dreams and do what you really want and do what you're really good at, which is this. You have a gift. You've always had this gift. And, there's a part of me that says that I feel that you've been robbed of certain things, and I just feel that I don't want that to determine your outcome. I really feel that there's so much more for, the rest of Canada to discover about Freeway Frank.
Thanks.
So it's time.
That means the world to me coming from you, because I value you as a friend, and you're a pro. I still watch, not that I'm watching red carpets that often and all that. It's more like clips, but I always envision you on those red carpets back in the day, and you say, well, this was, I turn to my wife and I go, this was Natasha. She wouldn't be asking this stupid question.
Oh, you're sweet.
You're fantastic at what you do.
Thanks.
And I think, if I may say and copy exactly what you said, that you were robbed.
Stop.
But like you said, you got to keep going.
Yeah.
You
got to keep going.
And even though it's hard to put it on a boat and let it float, right? But it's hard because we're human. In any career that you do, in any job, any relationship, moving on is the toughest thing.
You're right. Yes.
It really is. But look, I'm trying to move on and get to the next phase, the next level. But I think my best opportunity, my best shot at doing that is to do the things that made me happy when I was the happiest in my life.
Yeah.
And you were part of that success and some of my best personal moments in radio. You were always there, sitting across from me, as my equal. I always treated you as that. And I want everyone to know that on this podcast that we're doing, because we're our own bosses, we'll be bossing each other around. I'll let Natasha boss me around. She deserves it. But I want it to be, it's equal. We already discussed it. It's 50-50, or I should say 100-100, giving both 100% effort. But it's our podcast.
Yes.
And so there's no, Frank's going to speak first, and then you're going to you're going to say that.
How
no.
ridiculous is
ridiculous.
that, right?
It's going to be like, turn on the mics and go. What do you got? Talk to me, and then let's talk to each other.
Great.
And it doesn't matter who's. There's no order. It's just you and I. And I think this will be the best version of Freeway Natasha and ourselves. Because how could it not be when it's so?
I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I'm looking forward to it. So, is this where we're going to do it?
Well, okay. Well, that'll be.
I have a question. How long do podcasts go? Because I feel like we've been talking for hours.
I don't even know how long. It's been a while. I would say it's a good.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, it's been how long?
I don't know. I'm literally asking.
See, but that's the thing. There is no time.
Is it 1:00?
Yeah, and we started at this before noon. But you know what?
Is it? Oh, wow.
This is the thing with us is there's no time. Time stands still.
Time stands still.
Yeah, because it's when something is as natural as it is.
I got to get used to this podcast world.
Yeah, no,
okay.
That's the thing is there's no time limit.
There's no
so
time
we end
limit.
it when we want to end it.
Okay.
So We're doing a
Are
podcast.
we going to end it soon?
We're ending it
Okay,
soon.
Sure.
Because I want you to finish that glass. I made
we're
a
going to
little.
be here for hours.
I made a little charcuterie board.
I know. I
And
was
so I
so
wanna go-
impressed.
yeah.
I'm really honestly, you went
just-
all out. Thank you. You're very sweet.
Nothing as nice as Natasha does when I go over there. It's like a
Stop.
big presentation every single time.
Stop.
Tasha, thank you for being the 100th guest on the Drive By podcast, which is going nowhere.
Honored and happy for you.
Thank you so much.
What's next for the drive-by with Freeway Frank?
Let's see how Freeway Natasha, the podcast, goes. If it's out of control and doing so well, who knows? No, I would like to keep having my voice on my podcast
course.
because I have.
Don't stop.
I don't want to stop, and it's exciting to know that I'm going to be doing both. It really is. So for the drive-by, I'm going to be making an announcement about where the podcast is going next. I think you know, but I haven't mentioned it yet. And that will coincide with the Freeway Natasha podcast, and it'll all make sense when I make
Great.
that announcement. It all comes together. So drive-by podcast with Freeway Frank, sticking around. Freeway Natasha
Back
podcast.
again.
Back again.
Woo!
Love to hear from you. You could
Yes,
DM
please.
us and tell us how you feel about this. And if you enjoyed this podcast on YouTube or Spotify, give it 5 stars, review or a comment on Apple, like it on YouTube. And if you want to contact Natasha, don't harass her, okay? She has a boyfriend. She's not available.
Stop it.
At Natasha Gargiulo
Natasha Gargiulo. There you go.
with an underscore
Natasha_Gargiulo.
on Instagram.
On Instagram.
And then you're still on Facebook?
I'm still on Facebook. Yeah, 2 of them say it's my name.
And I guess we're going to have to start another. Do we have to start another page? I guess we have
I
to
guess
start
we'll have to do a social
even
media
more.
page.
I'm gonna-
All right. We'll have to do
another
that.
page.
Social media world. We got to be part of it.
We
so
have to be
will.
part of it. And I
Baby
thank you
steps. Let's do it.
from the bottom of my heart. I thank you
for
so much for being on my podcast and for being the 100th guest. I love you.
I love you too.
And I thank you for being you and being so open-minded that you would consider even working with me again.
Are you kidding me?
all I got.
I've been wanting to work with you,
Thanks,
and
Tash.
you are my ride or die when it comes to this. So I really appreciate you, and I'm so happy for you. I'm so sorry it took me so long to be here, but I'm kind of happy that I'm your 100th guest because you made this big announcement, and there's so much more for you with the drive-by, and I love you to bits, and I wish you all the best.
Love you, Natasha. Thank you. I almost said thank you, Steph. I used to call her my wife on the air, and I used to call my wife Natasha, literally, like almost every night. That's how close we were from all those years of working together. Thank you, Tash.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, you finished
To,
yours.
well, don't say that. They can't see it. But now I'm going to be cheering. No, there's still a tiny bit of. You see that?
Yeah, there is
you
a
shouldn't
tiny
be.
bit.
You shouldn't be chin-chinning an empty glass. So I say,
Cheers to
the
you.
best to you.
Cheers.
All the success in the world, Natasha, and to our new podcast, Freeway and Natasha, coming soon. We'll announce it as the details come. Thank you.
Can't wait. Thank you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Love you too.
This is the Drive-By with Freeway Frank.
Watch all episodes of The Drive-By on YouTube. Listen in on Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, Podbean, and tune in.